So we are talking about deciding what ball we want to throw in warm-ups before we start game one. So what I want is to figure out, I guess we'll go through and figure out how we both decide. I'm gonna let you go first on what your thought process is.
Well, obviously I check the pattern. If it's posted, I mean, if it's a house shot, that's different, but you either know it or you don't. I check the pattern. I kind of see how much the volume is. I'm gonna see where it's gonna play. And once I make that determination, then I kind of select 4 balls to kind of look at when I'm in practice.
Okay.
And then that's how I do it.
Okay, so you have 4 balls now to look at. And you throw 4 different balls.
Tournament. It's
Right.
for a tournament.
For a tournament. What ends up being your deciding factor?
Carry. Always carry.
Just carry.
Just carry.
So you don't look room for error? You're just looking carry?
Well, I'm looking for carry in that, well, you got to have carry first, and then room for error, I guess, would be for me, I guess, a secondary thought process.
Okay.
Because all the balls that I would select, the 4 balls, are going to be, they're either going to roll longer and then hook, or they're going to start up earlier than hook, and the surfaces might be a tad different.
Okay. All right, so I guess I have a little bit of a different way of going about it. I try not to do any predetermined stuff, so if I look at the pattern, all I'm looking at is just the length and the volume. I'm not going to try and decide how I want to play.
Oh,
it.
no, right.
You know,
Right. I agree with that.
And the reason for it, because most people will, I know a lot of people have asked me, can you make a video how to read the lane graphs and this and that? And I really haven't done it because I don't want people to get stuck in the habit of making preconceived, notions of what they think they're going to do before they get there. I don't want to look at a pattern and be like, all right, it's 41 feet, it's got this volume, it's got this many 2-2s and this many, 5-5, whatever it may be. I don't want somebody to look at that and be like, oh, there's a little trough right there, it should play here. Well, that's not necessarily true because of the surface and
right.
Whatever else is going
surface issues. You have no idea if their machine can put that pattern down correctly. Depends on what happened beforehand. Was there enough
weather?
Yeah, I mean,
kinds of stuff.
I never look at that because it's going to play differently.
Yeah, so it's okay to look at like the length and
volume.
Right. And then what you need to take into consideration is the surface you're bowling on.
Right.
So if you're coming to a house like Waterford Lanes here, where we know the surface is, very high friction surface, then you can look at that and be like, okay, well, I'm not going to ever need like a reality or an obsession or, something super strong like that, no matter what the pattern. Maybe on a real short pattern so you can get the ball to bleed out its energy and burn up, but that's about it.
Well, I see folks besides myself struggling with which ball to pick and choose for their first ball of the day. And even in league, I see it. Guys come in with 4 balls, 6 balls. I know a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine and yours, that brings 12 balls to league. At that point, you're confusing. You should know the league pattern, give or take a board or 3. I mean, you should know that.
Yeah.
Bringing 12 balls to league's silly.
Yeah.
Now, when I look at the volume, and I'll give you an example. You and I bowled, I don't know, about 4 weeks ago on a 42-foot pattern, medium, highish volume, and that pattern should not have played outside, and we played it outside. So you can be tricked. If you read that the night before and you come up and say, this is a 42-foot pattern, I'm not going to need this, and I'm not going to need this, it probably is the ball that would have won the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of why I always stress to make sure you have a good variance. So you separate your bags. Like these are my long balls for long patterns. These are my short balls for short patterns. And then whatever it may be, you got your benchmark bag. So you always take your benchmark bag. And then if you're bowling on a long pattern, obviously you take your long pattern balls and then you grab 1 or 2 of the short pattern balls just in case, it ends up playing where you got to play further right. You need something straighter, something not necessarily straighter, but something that's going to be able to play the lane straighter. So that's kind of where we're at. So I guess for me, when I'm looking at the lanes, and I can't answer this question for league very well because I haven't figured it out yet. But for tougher conditions, I always look at the middle of the lane. I look at the middle of the lane and I look at down lane reaction. So when I'm getting going, my first few shots are always with a benchmark ball. I'm always with something like an IQ Tour or like an Obsession Tour or even an Obsession. And I know people are going to be like, oh, but you can't use those big strong balls as benchmark. BS, because a benchmark technically is just something you know what it's going to give you. You know whether you can go up bowling balls or down bowling balls from there. So
yeah, it doesn't have to be the middle ball in your assortment of balls.
It's not always a middle. It's just a ball that you know exactly what it's going to do.
Right.
Essentially on everything you bowl on.
Right.
You know, so you can make your decisions based on that bowling ball.
Typically, it's going to be your favorite ball.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. So I'll look at that and I will watch the middle of the lane. And I want to make sure my bowling balls pick up the middle of the lane. And it's not the easiest thing to see. You have to watch it pick up the middle of the lane and then watch how it goes through the pins. Once I find that bowling ball because there's actually only a few. You're going to take, like say we're at a tournament, you're going to take 12 bowling balls. There's only going to be a few that do the right thing in the middle of the lane. And you've got to be able to pick those quick. And then you've got to be able to pick the one that's going to give you a little bit of room for error left and right. So once I find a couple of them that are reading the middle of the lane properly, I'll start moving my feet to the left and keeping my eyes to the same to basically pretend like I'm missing to the right. So if I miss to the right and it still hooks and still gets to the pocket, that's a pretty good choice right there. You know, and vice versa, I'll move to the left or move to the right and then try to miss to the left a little bit. If it sits there, you know, if I find a ball that does both, that's an easy decision. But if you've got one that does one or the other, that's where it's like, okay, well, what are you more accustomed to doing? Do you miss left more often or do you miss right more often? So if you miss left more often, well, we're probably going to use the ball that actually gives you more shim. You know, gives you a little bit more hold. But otherwise, you're going to use the other one. So it's actually a really difficult thing to do is to find a ball that you can start with because you got like, it doesn't matter the pattern for the most part. Pretty much all the bowling balls are going to look the same off the back of the pattern. You know, or at least similar. You know, all of them are going to look pretty good because it's a fresh pattern. You know, there's no plastic has gone down lane. You haven't seen transition yet, so you have to decide. You know, what do you know what's going to happen at that point. Hi guys. So where did we leave off?
Well, we were talking about you know where you look and see the mid lane pickup, and you make a selection off that. What you see is what you're seeing making the right moves on the middle part of the lane.
Oh yeah, we were talking. Yeah, because everything looks the same on fresh.
Right.
So get on a fresh pattern, everything looks pretty much the same. At least real close to the same. They all pretty much go down to the end of the pattern and then they start going left. You know, so it's unique, or I shouldn't say unique. It's very difficult to pick up the bowling ball that's reading the middle of the lane. So a lot of the times it's the bowling balls that have a lot of swirl in them that are easier to see that with. Something like this wouldn't be as easy to see it.
Exactly.
Because it's solid. You can't see that little bit of a transition that the ball's making.
Absolutely.
So it's really difficult to see. It's more you just got to train your eye to see something like that. And that's what, you know, our training is good for. We can get you out here. This place is really good for it because we can get you out here and know your ball's going to read the middle lane here.
She's going to read.
Yeah, she's going to read here. So we can show you what to look for because then we can take them down to the first 8 lanes where we got different surface. They ain't going to read nearly as fast.
No.
So that's kind of a cool thing there. But
one little segue I want to throw in. I bowl 3 leagues. All 3 of the leagues are for senior bowlers 55 and over. And some of the very best bowlers in the city of Detroit bowl in these leagues. I mean, we got the top 20 guys still averaging 220. Here is what I see a lot, and people ask questions about. Or I ask questions. It's like, well, it's not working today. I said, well, okay, why are you throwing that ball? Because I always start with that ball in the first game. Okay, wrong. You can't do that. You cannot bring 3 balls to league bowling and say, well, I always start with this one, and then I go to this one, and then I go to this one. Because today, the humidity may be different. You may be on a different pair. You definitely are bowling a different team, and that's going to really affect where you play in the lane. So, you know, if you start out typically with a solid ball, I see a lot of guys start out typically with a solid ball, they're playing right up the track. Well, the other team plays right up the track too. Let's say there's 8 good bowlers on that pair. Well, you just blew up the track in a game. I mean, definitely. So the right play for you might be to shift in with a pearl and try to get a little left. But don't always lock into, this is what I always do. I'll give you a quick story. I had a guy that shot 279, clean as a whistle, another 279. So he's going up in the, he was ahead of me bowling, and he grabbed a different ball. And I stopped him. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He goes, I always switch to this ball the third game, period. I don't even throw the other one. Well, he shot a $186 after a pair of 279s because he always uses that ball.
Yeah.
So don't get locked into that.
Yeah, that's that preconceived notion thing. That's that. Well, this is what I always do, so that's what I need to do. And then they always end up making the excuse of, well, they must have changed the pattern.
Right.
Well, no, the pattern didn't change.
Right.
The environment around you changed.
All the variables
Yeah,
changed.
everything else changed. So, as much as I like to kick the maintenance guy as much as anybody, this is one area where I kind of have to back them up and be like, most places are keeping the patterns the same, but especially like in Michigan right now with the weather the way it is, we could be 30 degrees one day and then all of a sudden 20 minutes later it's 65.
Exactly, and here are the other, there's so many variables that go into a league condition, okay? Like Jer said, they're putting the shot out the same. Well, what'd you have last night? Did you have a tournament last night? Did you have a league last night? Did you have parties last night? What time did they turn the air conditioner on in the summer? Makes a big difference. If they turn it on 3 hours earlier, it's going to be different if they turn it on 3 hours later. Trust me, it will. Then the biggest thing you got is who you're bowling with.
Yeah, I would agree.
And today, let me give you a quick example for today. So I started out slow in my first game because I made bad ball decisions. Finally got it into the second game. But here's the thing. In the third game, for whatever reason, and I kind of watched who was ahead of me, no one was using urethane, but everybody was playing in the same area. They got snot tight. I can't tell you how tight they got. In fact, I went to the one pair, and one of the bowlers told me, he said, hey, these are super tight. I listened to him because he's a super good bowler. So I made an adjustment. I was right on that game. I mean, right off the bat because I made a big move because he said it was so tight. So, again, don't get that preconceived notion in your head that you have to do something. And I ended up going back to a stronger ball as soon as he said that. I went with a stronger reading ball.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that people don't take into consideration is the topography of the place. Because most places now have these synthetic panels, they're screwed down in certain spots. And if they're screwed down more on one pair than another, because they don't really gauge that, they don't know how much pressure they're putting down. We don't know, is the first panel screwed down a little bit more than the second panel, and it's going to be different from where we go. So I'm going to end this video, and I'm going to show you another video at the end of this. It's that video from Kegel where they have Pete Weber throwing a shot, 2 different lanes, the same pattern. One strikes dead flush, the next shot misses the head pin to the right, takes 3 off the right. And it's the same pattern. He throws it almost identically the same, but they changed the topography of the lane by a thousandth of an inch.
Was he going uphill?
I'm not sure what the change was, but the whole point is the topography changed by just a micro, little minute change, and his ball went 60 feet.
Well, and you don't know that. You can't see that, and they're not posting that.
Right.
I mean, you cannot. There's no way to defend against that.
Yeah.
So you have to make quick decisions on it.
Yeah, and the best thing you can do is, instead of trying to play the pattern, instead of trying to play, whatever it is that you think needs to happen, you just need to play your own ball reaction. You just need to watch your ball.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, your ball's going to tell you exactly what to do. So, anything else to add?
No, I think that was good.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Okay, we're out of here, guys. We'll see you guys next time. This has been the BowlerX. What do we call ourselves? The X-Men?
X-Men.
We're the X-Men. Chatting with the X-Men. That's what we'll call it. So we'll see you guys later. Take care.